Hi guys and girls, it's Daniel Walsh from Your Property Wealth. Today we're talking about how to prepare yourself for getting a loan. Now this might be that you're preparing yourself for your first property, or it might be that you're building a property portfolio and you're going back to get multiple properties and you're trying to prepare yourself to build a larger property portfolio. The number one thing that you got to be looking at is when you're going into prepare for a loan is it's almost like putting a court case forward, right? You've got to go in there and explain to the banks why you're worthy of debt and why you're worthy of the loan, and then also show them that you can pay back that loan and that you're going to have no hassles with the banks in terms of making sure that you are actually paying those bills. The number one thing is making sure you get rid of all your bad debt. It's going to be very hard to go into a bank and say, can I have a $500,000 loan when you've got boat loans and caravan loans, or you might have a car loan and you've got little loans over here and there and you haven't paid those debts off. So all of that bad debt, what it's actually doing is showing to the banks that you've got all this bad debt that you can't pay back, or it's taking you a lot longer to pay back. And also it's just draining your cash flow. So when it comes to running the serviceability on, can you actually afford that loan? They'll be looking at all these other loans and saying, well, if it's costing you $300 a month for this and $400 a month for that, then maybe you can't actually afford this $500,000 loan. So what we want to do is really run very lean going into a preparation for getting a loan. So we want to get rid of all of those bad debts, pay them all down, so that when you go into the banks or you go to your broker, you could submit everything and say, look, I'm very squeaky clean here. I've got no debts, no bad debts, and I'm here to go out there and just get an investment property or my first property. Now, number two is paying off your credit cards, and also maybe even cutting those credit cards up. So the other thing as well is if you've got all these credit cards and you've gone on a holiday and you've bought stuff on credit cards and you haven't been able to pay that off in full each month, then what happens is the bank's going to say, well, you can't even pay for your credit card that's $15,000 or $10,000. How are you going to pay for an actual house loan? So it looks like you're going to default on that house loan because you can't even pay your credit card bill. The best thing to do is make sure that you pay off your credit card, and in some cases, you're going to have to cut up your credit cards, because what happens is when you get a credit card, let's say it's a $20,000 credit card, even though you haven't actually used the $20,000 credit card, it's going to hit your serviceability in terms of how much you can borrow, depending on what your credit card limit is. Because what they're doing is saying, okay, it's a $20,000 limit. Yes, you haven't spent anything on that, but you could go to the casino tomorrow and blow $20,000 on that credit card, and now all of a sudden you're max out. So what you want to do is get rid of that credit card so you can free up your serviceability, increase your serviceability so that you can borrow more when it comes to buying a property. Number three is reducing your expenses for 6 months. So typically your bank between 3 to 6 months is what they're going to do is go through all of your statements. They actually have a look at your spending habits. They're saying, are you buying coffees every day? Are you going out to lunch and dinner every day? Are you, have you been going overseas? Are you doing large renovations? All that type of thing. So what they're doing is looking at your money habits to say, is this person sporadic in terms of, are they just out there shopping and buying all the time? Or are they very diligent and they are very consistent in what they're spending? So typically they're only going to look up to around 6 months. So you want to be squeaky clean for that 6 months. You want to make sure that you're not spending money on going on holidays and doing renovations and going out to dinners and all that. You want to minimize that so that you have your overall expenses quite low, so that they're not going to be flagged when it comes to looking at your, in terms of your bank transactions and what you've spent. Number four is a good savings history. So when it comes to a good savings history, what you want to be doing is being very consistently, right? So if you earn $1,000 a week, if you can save $200 a week or $300 a week, you just want to be consistent to save that money each week, so that when they do look at your statements, they can see your bank balance has been increasing consistently over time. It means that you're not stretched in your daily lifestyle, that you can actually afford what you currently, or how you currently live, and that you could probably take on some extra debt as well. Number five is maximizing your earnings. So typically what they'll do is the banks will want to look at your last year's or maybe even 2 financial years, depending if you're in business or a PAYG. They might look at your pay slips. If you're PAYG, they'll generally look at your 2 pay slips, but also maybe your tax returns as well. So what you want to be doing is at least a year or 2 years out, if you're in business, you want to be looking at your overall turnover for that 2 years and saying, okay, have I maximized my earnings capacity in those 2 years so that when I go to the banks, I can show that I've earned really good money over that time to be able to get a loan? The same thing with a PAYG job. You want to be maximizing. Can you do overtime? Can you do extra in terms of making more money somehow throughout that period of time? You just want to be maximizing your position. You don't want to be doing things like, having a baby and having your wife on maternity leave, and then all of a sudden you're down to one wage. It's going to be very hard to go through and get a loan while that's happening, because now all of a sudden you've got half the wage that you would normally be taking on in a household, yet you've got a child or a dependent as well that you've got to pay for. So your expenses went up, but your wage actually went down because you've only got half or one income coming in at that point. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing your earnings capacity when you go into the banks, that they can see that you're earning very good money. If you're doing overtime, we add that in there as well. But when it comes to building or buying your first property or building your investment property portfolio, every time you prepare to go in there and get a loan, you're basically putting a court case together. You're coming in there and saying, I am here to say that I'm worthy of credit. Now, here is my evidence on why I'm worthy of credit, and then they will go through and assess that. So we want to make sure that we're going through these 5 things to make sure that we have the best chance of securing a loan with the bank that we want to go for. If you like my videos, can you please like, share, and comment? And until next time, guys, have a great day.